Hello everyone, and welcome to another Monster Hunter World video. This is Thegameconomist, and today we're going to be taking a brief look at the Teostra Gamma armor. We're going to be looking at it and wondering, how would a professional or an expert actually use this armor? No! So we're going to start off by taking a look at the efficiency of each piece of the armor. First of all, we'll notice that 3 pieces of the armor will give you the set bonus skill, Master's Touch. Master's Touch, if you don't know what that is, basically when you get a critical hit on the monster, your weapon doesn't lose any sharpness. That's really important for increasing your damage output, because basically when you have to stop and resharpen to get your white sharpness bar back, you're really losing a lot of time. And if you can get your affinity all the way up to 100%, that means you're not going to have to sharpen your weapon at all. So you don't have to build a lot of handicraft, you don't have to build a lot of your white sharpness bar up in order to keep that good damage modifier that you're getting from the white sharpness bar. That's why we care about Master's Touch. And the big difference between the new Teostra Gamma armor and the new Draken armor, see, they both have Master's Touch. The big difference is you need 4 pieces of the Draken armor to get Master's Touch. With the Teostra's armor, you only need 3 pieces. So if there's a case where you really need to have 2 pieces of a different armor set for the build that you're trying to pull off, you're probably going to come over here to the Teostra Gamma set. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the efficiency of each of the pieces from the set. No! So the first one, it gives you 2 levels of critical eye. This is really important here. I want to mention getting critical eye onto the build is very advantageous because it pairs with Master's Touch. So we care about getting critical eye. Let me mention something about that skill. It gives you something we called static affinity. It means it doesn't matter where you hit the monster on its body, you're always going to have that chance for a crit because of critical eye. Whereas when we talk about weakness exploit really only works when you hit the monster, like their head for example, maybe their tail. But with critical eye, it doesn't matter where you hit them, you're getting that affinity basically. So 2 levels of crit eye on the Kaiser Crown Gamma and 2 medium decoration slots. That's about efficient as the Nergigante helm. They're about the same, and really it's not that bad. After that, we have the Kaiser Mail Gamma. This is the chest piece. Now, this is an extremely efficient piece of armor. However, the question is, do we want latent power? Notice that we get 2 levels of latent power, 1 level of weakness exploit, and 1 medium decoration slot. That's the equivalent of 4 medium decoration slots. That's a lot. But you have to have 2 levels of latent power on the build, and I don't know how I feel about latent power. I know that latent power activates when you've taken enough damage, or when enough of the fight has gone by. So one of the things you might do with the latent power is you might use it to fight Lunastra, for example, or maybe Valhazak, where you're going to take damage either way. There's no way to avoid the damage. It's DOT damage. And then latent power is going to activate for you, and as long as you've got like health regen on your weapon, you're going to be fine. You don't have to like drink. So latent power versus Valhazak and Lunastra, that's an option. One of the problems with latent power, one of the criticisms is, it gives you 50% more affinity, which means if you're being efficient, you're only running around with 50% affinity anyways, and waiting for it to proc. So you start off the fight kind of weak, and then once it procs, you're really strong, but you still spent that whole portion of the fight kind of weak at the beginning. We don't really know if that's worth it, because there's so many good ways to build affinity already. And we're going to follow up on the latent power when we get to the coil. We're still at the chest piece. So the chest piece has an efficiency of 4 medium slots. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Vambraces. Kaiser Vambraces Gamma gives you 3 levels of critical eye and 1 large decoration slot. Now that's okay in terms of efficiency. I feel like kind of the biggest point to take away from it here is that you can be a player who doesn't have a lot of the critical eye decoration. I don't have that problem, but I know some of you out there might be having that problem because the decorations take a long time to unlock. And if you were to pair this with the helmet, you would mostly be done with critical eye. And your other build option would be to go back to the Kaiser Vambraces Alpha. This is one of my favorite arm pieces in the game. It gives you 2 levels of weakness exploit and a small decoration slot. That's pretty efficient. It's not like the most efficient for an arm piece, but those 2 levels of weakness exploit and you're adding another point to the bonus set skill, Master's Touch, that's pretty efficient in my opinion. So Kaiser Vambraces Alpha could replace Kaiser Vambraces Gamma. It's really up to you and what fits your needs. You know, if it's better for you to get more critical eye onto your build, then go for the Gamma, obviously. Let's move on to the coil. The Kaiser Coil Gamma is also an extremely efficient piece of armor. It gives you 3 medium decoration slots for latent power and 2 small decoration slots. So that's very efficient. We don't see that in any other coil in the game right now. And the problem is, it's 3 levels of latent power, just like I was talking about earlier with the chest piece. That gives you 4 medium decoration slots. Both of those pieces of armor are extremely efficient for building latent power. In fact, if you were going to use latent power, this is how you would want to use it. You'd want to use these 2 pieces of armor. But the problem, once again, is do we want latent power? And again, maybe you can experiment with it when fighting Lunastra, when you're fighting Valhazak, or when you're fighting any other monster that does, like maybe you can go down an Elder's Recess and not drink a cool drink, and you'll take DOT that way when you're fighting a monster, and you'll make latent power activate even faster. Just be sure you have enough health regen on your build, right, when you're augmenting your weapon. So yes, that's probably the most efficient way to utilize latent power, but I'm just not sure if that's really what we want to do here, and I'll leave it up to the speedrunners to decide that, but I feel like even the speedrunners are not going to be your best example of when to use latent power, because those guys tend to end the fight so quickly that latent power probably doesn't even kick in, you know what I mean? So this might be more for fights that you know are going to be prolonged fights. We have 2 prolonged fights. Kulve Taroth is a prolonged fight, and the Behemoth is a prolonged fight. So latent power in those cases might actually be worth it. And finally, we have the Kaiser Greaves Gamma. Kaiser Greaves Gamma come with 2 levels of crit eye, a small decoration slot, and a large decoration slot. Once again, the efficiency is just okay. You have a lot of legs that have 2 like larger decoration slots and then 2 smaller ones. This is kind of similar to that if you needed the leggings to hold a small decoration anyways. But notice, we're also taking into account that you're getting Master's Touch with this set. And so the whole point here is you can take the helmet, the arms, and the leg to get Master's Touch and max out your critical eye. I think that's actually pretty cool, especially if you're a player that doesn't have critical eye, and it leaves your chest and your coil open for 2 other pieces of armor. Now, if you're interested in having latent power, then you would take the entire set, and I think that's one of the coolest things they kind of pull off with the new Teostra Gamma set, is there may be a case where you would want to wear the entire set. And you don't find that very often in Monster Hunter World for whatever reason. They don't like to do that. But in this case, they really did do it. You could pull off the whole set in some situations. It just really depends on what's going on. And that's mostly because latent power is really not the best skill in the game. Okay, so that is my brief analysis of the Teostra Gamma armor. You've got head, arm, legs for building Master's Touch and then having 2 open armor slots for something else. For example, building Crit Element. And then the chest and the coil are the most efficient way to build latent power in the game. However, it's questionable if anyone should ever build latent power. If you guys want to share your thoughts on the Teostra Gamma armor set, please be sure to mention it in the comments section. Alright, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.